Hey everyone, Christian here, and I've gotten a lot of questions regarding where are the best places to live in Florida if you are a fan of plants. So I decided to make a list, not necessarily like a certain number, like not a top five, but a top 5 to 10 places that are the best places to live in Florida if you want to grow plants. And then I'm going to make a separate video on the top 5 to 10 places that are the worst in Florida to grow plants. Now, these places have been chosen based off of the cost of living, their climate as far as warmth, uh, crime rates, my personal experience going there, and their accessibility to like other things that you may want to also enjoy in Florida. So the first location that I want to talk about is a place that many of you have not heard of. It is in Palm Beach County. It is called Loxahatchee, and it is basically a farming community on the western outskirts of town, about 15 miles west of West Palm Beach proper. So Loxahatchee was built mainly, I believe, in the 80s to 90s, and it's mostly dirt roads with some larger main roads that are paved that go through the area. And there are a lot of canals there, and there's a lot of larger properties that you can grow. Usually, I think it's a 5 acre minimum. There might be a 2.5 acre minimum. I'm not entirely sure, but the properties I've seen out there are a minimum of 5 acres. So it's a little bit of living more in the rural side. You're going to have a lot of dirt roads, a lot of sandy dirt roads, a lot of canals, a lot of like unfinished infrastructure, but it's done that way on purpose. So there are a number of well-known growers, especially Caribbean Palms. Mike Harris and Dale Holton of Holton Nursery both have places out there, and they have some really nice plants growing out there. So a couple of the downsides of living, the cost, for example, per acre of living for an area in what's considered South Florida is relatively low there, and you have all the amenities not too far away of West Palm Beach and South Florida in general. Miami's about an hour and 15 to an hour and a half away. And then you can go up to the Treasure Coast, which is about an hour north of there, like the Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie area. So the downsides being you're not living. If you want to live, if you're more of a city person, you may not like this. The infrastructure, like I said, isn't all there. If you have a nice car, you may not want to drive it around on a dirt road. There, just have to go to the car wash every day. Something that I particularly don't like, which kind of sucks. I just don't like having to keep my cars clean all the time, and that's kind of a little picky personal thing of mine that I just don't like, and it probably won't affect most people. If you just drive an older truck or something, it's not that big of a deal. But I haven't checked real estate prices, but considering what it costs to live in just like a single family dwelling in Palm Beach County versus living out there, it is quite reasonable. The downside is that when there are cold fronts, it will get a little bit colder there than it will in, say, West Palm Beach. There will be frost there. But it tends to be a little bit warmer during the day, and it kind of offsets that. So it's mostly like a really solid zone 10 climate. It can get, I have seen it get into the mid to upper 20s there a couple times. But if you want to cover your plants a little bit, you can get away with almost everything you'd want to get in most of South Florida. So that's Loxahatchee for you. Like I said, Western Palm Beach County. Check it out if you want to grow plants. The acreage is really the main factor there. It's hard to find that in South Florida. So the second place I want to talk about is going to be more urban. We're talking about St. Petersburg and Pinellas County, Florida. So Pinellas County is the most densely populated county in Florida. It's not the most populous, it's just the most densely populated, meaning there aren't a lot of areas. First of all, it has a lot of people, and there's like 950,000 people live in Pinellas County. And it consists of like St. Pete, Gulfport, Largo, Dunedin, Clearwater, and a couple other cities like Seminole, some smaller ones that all kind of just mingle into one another. So it is sort of like a suburban slash urban area. So if you want to be close to, literally close to like a downtown area or just an urban area, you're going to be surrounded by it. So downtown St. Pete is beautiful. Downtown Clearwater is really nice on the Gulf side. St. Pete is on the Tampa Bay side, over kind of overlooking Tampa Bay. But the main reason that this is a good place to grow plants is, first of all, there's a great plant community there. Pete, that you will see a great variety of plant growers, not just palms, but say crotons and other colorful plants that you will get to know a lot of people in the area. And the houses are small, the properties are small. You can get properties that have a little bit more, I don't say acreage, but just more square footage. And the main reason I chose this area, most I'm talking more southern Pinellas County. When you get into the northern part, it does get a little bit cooler. Areas like Tarpon Springs, right there on the border with Pasco County, and you get a little more interior towards like Oldsmar and Safety Harbor. It does get a little bit chillier there as well because you're getting closer to Tampa, which is more inland and further into the bay. But when cold fronts come through, if you notice, there's actually there's rarely a wind chill or frost advisory. There might be a wind chill advisory, but there is rarely a frost advisory for Pinellas County because it's just it's one huge peninsula that is warmed by the Gulf, essentially warming up the air before it comes over into the county. And also on the other side, you have Tampa Bay, which is relatively warm comparative to the Gulf, insulating this peninsula and keeping it essentially frost free. Now, in 2010, 2011, I saw a lot of coconuts die there, but also saw a lot of coconuts die in western parts of Miami. So it isn't saying a whole lot. You can get away with a lot of very cool plants there, a lot of zone 10, even zone 10B in some areas. And it is actually pretty moderate in the summer. It's probably one of the mildest areas to live in the summertime, anywhere in peninsular Florida for that matter. In fact, almost anywhere in Florida, period. Northern Florida is probably the warmest part of Florida during the summertime. Sorry, I had to get my seltzer in here. So the third place I want to talk about is Pine Island. So Pine Island is a place you may be familiar with from my videos. I've gone there a lot. I used to have a nursery there twice, actually. And it is an island that has one road going to it. And it's relatively rural, but it is more attached to, it's in Lee County. It has about, I think there's like 5 or 6 thousand year-round residents, which is not a lot considering its size. And it is mostly agricultural, with no stoplights and excuse me, and just generally less traffic than you would find in the rest of Lee County. So Lee County consists of areas like Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Bonita Springs, North Fort Myers, and Lehigh Acres are the main cities in Lee County. So Lee County as a whole has about 775,000 people. So you're talking about 6,000 people on just this one island. It's not that densely populated. There are a lot of larger plots of land there for sale, and they are relatively cheap compared to other areas of Lee County. And if you want to find other plots like that in the county, you have to go way out into North Fort Myers, and you're basically going an entire zone. You're going from like a zone, almost a zone 9B to a zone 10B on Pine Island. Now, with that said, a lot of the middle parts of the island can get very cold. They can get frosty in the wintertime. But if you live in an area, the warmest part of Pine Island is actually the northern part called Bokeelia. There's 3 towns. There's Bokeelia, there's Pine Island Center, and there's St. James City on the south side. But because of the way that the cold fronts come in, the warm water on the west and northern sides of the island actually keep Bokeelia warmer than. Oh, I'm getting a spam call. Let's decline that. There we go. I'm going to ruin this video for that. And so as a result, you actually have a warmer northern part of Bokeelia is often the warmest part of anywhere in Southwest Florida. So it sits out in, not in the Gulf, but kind of just in Pine Island Sound. And as a result, will stay milder. And again, it has that same mild effect that St. Pete has in the summertime. It doesn't get too hot during the summer. It does stay pretty warm during the night, but it's worth it considering you're not getting the 95-degree temperatures that you would in Cape Coral or Fort Myers, because Cape Coral and Fort Myers are 10 to 12 miles inland from the Gulf, where Pine Island is only a couple miles inland. And, beyond Pine Island, you have Captiva Island and Cayo Costa. So it's not right there on the Gulf, but it is within the Sound, kind of insulated from a little bit of everything. The only real downside is that it does take a while to get to, more urban areas, but, there's going to be downsides to living anywhere. It's a little more, it's not very organized, and, there might be some, kind of backwoods areas you might be unfamiliar with if you come from the city, but I like going there. It's relaxing. There's a lot of palm gardens there. A lot of palm collectors actually buy property on Pine Island, say from areas like Tampa or Orlando, and they'll build a garden there, even if they don't even have a house there. So the fourth place I'd like to talk about is Brevard County, mainly central coastal Brevard County. So we're talking about areas like Cocoa Beach, Merritt Island, down into Indy Atlantic. So that area, where Patrick Air Force Base is, in and around that area. Now, for as far north as Brevard is, so Brevard is essentially due east of Orlando. There is a road called the B Line, which essentially runs from Orlando to Cocoa Beach. And my grandparents lived in Cocoa Beach from like 1982 to 2002 or so. And it was amazing to see what can grow that far north. A lot of times you would see now the freeze of '89 was pretty rough on that whole area. It kind of just destroyed a lot of the tropicals. But since then, it has been quite mild there, and it's sort of like how can you say, the St. Pete of the East Coast, where it has that great climate, where especially Merritt Island in particular. If you're going to choose one place in Brevard County, Merritt Island still has some larger, not large plots of land, but larger than average for Florida plots of land where you can grow stuff. It is in between Cocoa Beach and Cocoa, between the Indian and Banana rivers, I believe, which aren't really rivers, they're more just like narrow sounds that run between the barrier island and the mainland. And there's actually a lot of stuff to do in that area. There's a mall there. Not that people really go to malls anymore, but there are and you're kind of close to Orlando if you want to go there. I'm not personally a fan, but you also have the beach nearby. Property values aren't too high there, and the climate is a solid zone 10, especially by the water. Now, if you go all the way to Cocoa, which is on the mainland, you're looking more at a borderline at best zone 10 climate. So, more of a solid 9B, very solid 9B. So, given the cost of living there and the climate in the coastal areas, I think that's definitely a good choice. And that kind of goes all the way down into Melbourne, especially by the water. So Melbourne is more of like south central Brevard County, if you will. Brevard's a very long county. I want to say it's like 60 miles long north to south, and only about 20 or so east to west. I don't know the exact dimensions, but I believe that's close. But it is a desirable place to live for people who do grow palms. So one place that is hard to overlook because of its climate alone is going to be an area in the Florida Keys, and that is going to be Key Largo. Now, the reason I chose Key Largo over any other Keys is the fact that it is the largest of the Keys, and it having essentially a zone 11 climate, a true tropical climate. It has the most land available. So if you want to buy a larger plot of land or want to just live in a larger plot of land in the Keys, you're not going to find it on the lower Keys really, unless you have an insane amount of money to buy acreage on very small islands to begin with. A lot of those are built up with large condos, and you're just not going to be able to find that land. Now there are a few properties that exist, but also the accessibility of Key Largo to, say, an area like Miami or just to the rest of the United States is much easier than, say, driving the extra 3 hours south to Key West to find like a few degrees more of warmth when you don't really need it. When Key Largo's lowest temperature ever recorded, I believe, is 35. So most years, you won't get below 50, and it is quite a difference from just even 20 miles north in Homestead, which is a very large agricultural community. So Key Largo prices are still going to be high, especially if you're going to buy any sizable property. It is going to be relatively remote, but more if you're more into like the fishing, beach life. Key Largo is a good place to live. The importance of Key Largo being a larger key is the fact that you're not going to have as much exposure to salt water. There will be salt water around, but not say like directly on the water. I would say that a lot of the gardens that I visited that are directly on water, like salt water, deal a lot with one, salt intrusion, salty air, just the wind in general. So if you want to grow a lot of true tropical plants, a lot of them aren't going to want to grow there, such as lipsticks don't like salty air. A lot of the tender leafed species, understory species won't that are truly tropical won't grow by the water because there's too much sun, too much salt air, too much wind. So you want to kind of be insulated a little bit, find an interior property that you'd want to buy or live on, whatever you may find. So you get an extra, you jump in at least an extra half zone just going over Card Sound there into Key Largo from the mainland. So that's Key Largo for you. So another area that'd be hard to overlook is Redland. Now you may have heard of Redland. Redland is in Dade County. It is, I don't know if it's an incorporated area. I think it's unincorporated Dade County. And so it is really the farming community that exists within Southwest Miami, the Southwest Miami metro area. So Miami is generally considered to be all of Dade County. People just kind of look at it like that. A lot of people who live 30 miles outside of Miami but still live in Dade County will still put their address as Miami, Florida, even though they live in the city of Coral Gables. So Redland is about 30 miles southwest of downtown Miami, and it's mostly consisting of it was originally just a farming community for agricultural crops, and it still has that, but there's also a huge base of people that do grow ornamentals, and there are collectors that live down there. The properties are larger and they're moderately priced compared to buying property in Miami. So if you wanted to buy an acre of land in like Coral Gables, I mean, you're going to spend probably well over $1 million, where in Redland you're going to spend maybe $150,000, which is not considered a lot of money for Dade County land. I don't know what the prices are as of this moment, and someone may watch this years from now and say that I'm crazy for saying the prices, but the prices are significantly lower in Redland than they are in areas, more desirable areas such as Coral Gables. Now, when I say more desirable, I just say closer to the water, closer to more, infrastructure, I guess, is the best way of putting it. The downsides of living in Redland is it is sort of a hodgepodge of just random farms and just stores here and there, and the roads don't necessarily, I mean, they're all gridded by avenues, but they don't all go through to one another, and it is still expensive by Florida standards. You can buy cheaper land in the interior of Florida. You can go into say, for example, near Arcadia and get similar farming land, but you're going to be 12 to 15 degrees colder on the coldest nights. Now, it still does get, just like Loxahatchee and Redland are very similar in the fact that they are both sort of farming communities that are on the edges of towns that are well known and do have good climates. It does get a little bit chillier in Redland. I've seen it get down to 32 when Miami was 42, and that's just because it's on the edge of basically on the edge of the Everglades, and the radiation heat, or the radiation effect of heat basically dispersing from the ground is much greater there than it is by the water in an area such as downtown Miami or Coral Gables, or Miami Beach for that matter. So the reason Miami Beach is not on this is because, even though it has a great climate, is that there's just no land available. There's so much salt intrusion that it's very hard to grow a lot of plants, and just the tourism is kind of out of control. So Redland would be my one choice in the Miami area. So those are pretty much the 6 places that I would be, most inclined to try and grow palms in like on a larger scale. And some of them aren't really conducive. Like St. Pete is not a place where you'd want to start a large business. It's not a agricultural area, but it is a nice place to grow plants, and there is a large plant community. There's a lot of palm collectors that live in St. Petersburg, and there's a lot of historical value to areas like St. Pete and even rural Redland, because it was historically kind of a place where they unfortunately cut down all the pine trees to build Miami back in the early part of the 20th century. So, but there's a lot of history there. A lot of some of the newer areas, such as Brevard is not necessarily. I guess it is relatively old, but Loxahatchee is quite new. So the infrastructure that exists in Redland does not exist in Loxahatchee nearly as much, just because it's newer. Loxahatchee is, and you're gonna be going down, like I said, a bunch of sandy dirt roads, and Pine Island definitely has infrastructure, although some areas are a little bit rougher than others. But that's part of living like the country life, you could say. So I don't want this to go on too much, but I did want to put this video out there because people do always ask, where should I live if I want to grow palms in Florida? And so those are my six choices for where I would live if I wanted to grow on a larger scale, or just could just get up from where I am here in Venice and just go buy a plot of land. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you guys are new to the channel and enjoy talking about palms and other tropical plants, consider subscribing. If you have any other questions about areas in Florida that you think, or if there are areas in Florida that I did not mention that you think should be mentioned, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll try and comment on my opinion of that, because I couldn't put everything in here. So I don't want to make this video an hour long. It's already long enough as it is. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see everyone next time.